Hello children, good morning. Welcome back to the class of biology. Today we'll start with the chapter 14, natural resources. Children, you have learned about resources, you have learned about natural resources in your early classes. So the first part of the chapter is almost the revision of what you have done in your lower classes. Let's have a glance on it. Natural resources. When we talk about natural resources, what are natural resources? A natural resource is something found in nature that people can use to meet their needs. Now, what are the needs of people? Food, water, and shelter. So, they have to depend on the natural resources that is provided by Mother Earth to us, and with the help of these resources we sustain our life. So trees helps us. So trees and plants, they are the natural resource. Soil from which we get the plants is also a natural resource. The food that we eat to sustain our life is also obtained from plants. The other natural resource is water, that we get it from nature. So, the resources available on the earth and the energy from the sun are necessary to meet the basic requirements of life. So, the land, water, and the air are the resources on the earth. All of these three things are required for the existence of life forms. So, our life is sustained with the help of these three main resources, that is air, water, and soil. And with the help of sunlight, we are able to get energy. When we talk about the spheres of the earth, we live on earth, and so we must know what are the different spheres or zones of the earth. They consist of the lithosphere, that is the land on which we live, hydrosphere, that is water that we get, and atmosphere, that is the air that we get. Now, they together form and work together in order to form the biosphere. So, biosphere is the coordination of these three spheres on the earth. Everything in the earth system is placed into one of the four subsystems, that is land, water, living things, or air. So, these subsystems are known as spheres, as I just told you. Specifically, they are known as the lithosphere, hydrosphere, atmosphere, and the biosphere. So, we may say that Earth is divided into four spheres that interact to help life sustain on our planet. And these four spheres are the lithosphere, hydrosphere, atmosphere, and the biosphere. Now, let us see one by one each of this. When we talk about the lithosphere, you can see here in the figure that lithosphere is the layer which is consisting of the earth's crust plus the upper mantle. We know the layers of the earth. The outermost cool layer of the earth is the crust. Below the crust is the mantle, and the innermost part is the core. We will not discuss about the layers just now because we have already learned it in our lower classes. But when we talk about lithosphere, we must know that it consists of the earth's crust and the upper mantle, and it covers around 0 to 100 kilometers below the earth. It is the outermost part of the earth that includes crust and the uppermost mantle. Now, it is the most rigid part of the earth's layer because it is the solid form. It is in the solid form, so we say that it is the rigid form of the earth's layer. The second layer of the earth is the sphere is the hydrosphere. Now the hydrosphere is the entire water part of the earth. We know that 3/4 part of the earth's surface is covered with water. So what does it constitute? It constitutes of the oceans, rivers, lakes, and even the moisture that is present in the air. We know that it is in the form of water vapor, but then when this water vapor condenses, it again forms water. So that part is also considered as the water part. Here you can see the ocean, you can see the water body. So hydrosphere is the total amount of water that is found on the earth. So this is about the two layers. Now let's move on to the third layer of the earth. The third sphere of the earth is the atmosphere. What is atmosphere? It is the air covering of the earth. As we have learned in our lower classes that it is a blanket of air that is surrounded around the earth and which protects the earth from the ultraviolet rays of the sun, and it forms clouds, it forms the atmosphere, it forms the different weather conditions, and it's thus very important. Now what does it constitute? It constitutes of various gases, vapors, dust particles along with the air. Okay, now we come to the last sphere of the earth, that is the biosphere. Now biosphere is formed of the whole life supporting zone of the earth where the atmosphere, hydrosphere and the lithosphere, they interact. Now you may say that interaction is done between living things. How these spheres may be interacting with each other? But they have a ecosystem, they have a system within themselves within which they are dependent upon each other and they help each other in order to sustain life on the earth. Here in this figure you can clearly see the biosphere where you can see the ground or the land. You can see the dead plants and animals on the land which forms the humus and which is important for the growth of the plants. You can see the habitats like animals and human beings, the birds. In water you can see the sea creatures, the marine living organisms, and in the air we have the atmosphere. So all these three together they form the biosphere. Now I'll talk in detail about how do the earth sphere interact with each other. You can see this figure that the hydrosphere is dependent upon the geosphere. Geosphere is the lithosphere, that is the land and water. As we have learned about the sea breeze, land breeze, the wind currents. So for that exchange the lithosphere and hydrosphere are engrossed. When we talk about the lithosphere and the atmosphere, the causes of seasons, the formation of clouds, rain, precipitation, condensation, evaporation. So these all processes takes place when there is an interaction between the lithosphere and the atmosphere. And when we talk about the hydrosphere and atmosphere, again due to the heat of the sun, when the water rises up, it forms vapor, then it mixes with the air along with the heat in the atmosphere, and thus it helps in the formation of rain. So no sphere works on its own. All the spheres in the system interact and they overlap. Overlap means you have learned about the circles when they overlap each other. You have learned in maths So here you have to link it with science, that when they overlap means one is dependent on the other, and two spheres at a time can depend on the third one. So they mutually depend upon each other and they interact with each other. All four spheres can often be found in a single location. As you saw in the previous figure, the soil may contain minerals from the geosphere, moisture within the soil from hydrosphere, insects and plants from the biosphere inhabiting the soil, and pockets of air present between the soil pieces. So from the above statement we conclude that the complete system is what makes life. So the sustenance of the life is due to the interaction between these spheres on the earth. Now let's go into the biosphere in detail. Biosphere is further divided into two components, the biotic components and the abiotic components. Now when we talk about the biotic components, bio name itself means living. So when we talk about the living components, so the living things constitutes the biotic components of the biosphere, whereas A means the opposite of biotic. So it is abiotic. So what are abiotic components? The non-living things like air, water and soil, they form the abiotic components of the biosphere. You can see here it in the form of a flow chart, that the habitat is classified into biotic components and abiotic components. When we talk about the biotic components, they are further subclassified into plants, animals and microorganisms. When we talk about the abiotic components, they are further subclassified into light, temperature, water, soil and air. So these are the 5 components which constitute the abiotic components of the habitats that exist on the earth. Here you can see the figure about living things and non-living things which are considered as biotic and abiotic components. Here you can see the plants, animals and the microorganisms like bacteria, fungi and protists. When we talk about the non-living things or the non-living components, they include air, minerals, light, water and the soil. Okay, now let's talk about the abiotic components. We have talked about the plants and animals and we need not go into the detail about the biotic components just now. So we'll move on to the breath of the life, that is air, which is very important for the human beings for the existence on the earth. When we talk about air is a mixture of many gases like nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide and water vapor. When we talk about oxygen gas, it is present in the air and it is essential to living organisms for respiration. When we breathe, respire means to breathe. So oxygen is very essential for us and so it's called as the breath of life. Air, being a bad conductor of heat, helps to maintain the moderate temperature on the earth. Now here we don't need to go into too much detail, but you need to know that oxygen is a gas that is present in the air which is required for respiration. When we talk about the carbon dioxide gas, it constitutes about 0.04% of the air and it helps to maintain the temperature on the earth by acting as the greenhouse gas. Now greenhouse gases we have already learned in the 7th and 8th standard and we'll be dealing with it in detail when we'll talk about the different cycles of life. Just now let's talk about the production of the carbon dioxide gas. Carbon dioxide gas is produced in the atmosphere by the following activities. During the respiration processes, when the organisms break down the glucose in the presence of oxygen gas, we know that during respiration. When we respire, we take in oxygen and we give out carbon dioxide. So when the breakdown of glucose takes place, at that time the carbon dioxide is formed. Even the production of carbon dioxide takes place during combustion of fuels. When the fuels are combust, at that time the carbon dioxide is produced. Now there are also ways for carbon dioxide fixation. Means, how is carbon dioxide utilized? We know that carbon dioxide is responsible for the greenhouse effect, and excess of carbon dioxide in the air may cause pollution in the air, but still there are ways by which the carbon dioxide can be utilized in a fruitful manner. Green plants convert carbon dioxide into glucose by photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is a process which is used by the plants, or which is a process that is used for the preparation of food by the plants. So the major thing that they need is the carbon dioxide gas. Even the marine animals, they use carbonates that are dissolved in the seawater to make their shells. So in water also these carbonates are used. Let's go into detail about the composition of atmosphere. Atmosphere consists of many gases, as we talked before. It is a combination of many gases: nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, water, and some inert gases. Now what is its composition? Let's see. Nitrogen constitutes of 78%, oxygen consists of 20%, carbon dioxide and other gases constitutes of 0.3%, and the other inert gases like argon, they constitute of 0.97%. Water constitutes 1% of the total percentage of the gases. Okay, so this was about the composition of the atmosphere or the earth. Now let's talk about the movement of the air. That is, what are the different processes that takes place, and how is the air useful to us, and how it helps to sustain the life on the earth. We have already learned that moving air is called wind. Now how are wind caused? Winds are caused due to the uneven heating of atmosphere. So when the heat of the sun, it falls on the earth, then due to the pressure that is created, the currents, the currents of air are produced, and due to that it causes wind. Now let's move on to the further explanation, that when the air moves from higher pressure area to a lower pressure area. Now when we talk about higher pressure and lower pressure, we need to see the temperature, we need to see the area where this takes place. So we'll talk about the daytime, that during daytime what happens, the air above the land gets heated faster and starts rising. We have learned about the land breeze and sea breeze in science as well as SS, and we have learned that land and sea, when the heat of the sun falls on that, then comparatively the land gets heated up faster, and the air which is present on the above the land, it rises up. So the air from above the sea comes to the lower pressure region over the land. So the wind blows from sea to the land. So when this happens, then the breeze is caused. During the night time, what happens? The direction of the wind is from land to the sea, as the earth cools faster than the sea. Now see, जितना जल्दी गर्म होता है उतना ही जल्दी वो ठंडा भी हो जाता है. So now the earth cools faster than the sea. So what happens? It creates a low pressure region above the land. And what happens? Now again the wind will blow from the land to the sea. You can see in this figure, it is given stepwise. The land loses heat faster than the sea at night, so a higher pressure is exerted. Air above the land cools and shrinks to form an area of high pressure. So you can see here how the pressure, when we are talking about the high pressure and low pressure, so see how it is exerted, how the pressure is exerted. So now what happens? The low pressure is over the, where it is? It is in the sea. So the sea loses heat slowly and the warmer air above the sea rises to form an area of low pressure above the water surface. So now what happens? The place is vacant near the sea. So the cool air over the land, that is with the high pressure, it blows towards the seawards and replaces warm air over the sea, that is over the low pressure area, and it forms a land breeze. Exactly opposite of it happens in the sea breeze. So you have learned about the land breeze and sea breeze. So when the air moves from a higher pressure area to the lower pressure area, then it forms a land breeze. Okay, now if we want to check or if you want to observe the direction of wind, then there is an activity where you need only three things. You need a beaker. You can even take a wide mouthed bottle and place a candle in it, and above it you have to place an incense stick. Now what you need to do is, when you place this candle in the beaker or a bottle, and when you light it, you have to light an incense stick and take it to the mouth of the beaker. Now what you have to do is, you have to observe in which way does the smoke flow when the incense stick is placed near the edge of the mouth, or just little bit above of the candle, or in other directions. So this activity you perform and then you tell me where does the wind blow or where does the air go, in which direction. With the help of this you will be able to identify where is the higher pressure, where is the lower pressure, and in which direction the air flows. So you can perform this activity at home. You will need very less material and it will be very easy for you to understand the phenomenon of the land breeze and sea breeze, and you will come to know about the direction of the wind. How does atmosphere play a role in the climate control? Nowadays the climate is in control because of corona. People do not move out and the use of vehicles has reduced. But in the previous years we have observed that lot of pollution in the air, and it's all because of the human activities, and at least this year we have a control over it and we have less pollution. But let's see how atmosphere helps in controlling the climate. Actually, the atmosphere acts as a protective blanket for organisms existing on the earth, and as air is in the atmosphere, it is, as we have discussed before, it is a bad conductor of heat, and thus it helps to maintain the earth's temperature, and it prevents the sudden increase in temperature during daytime and during the night time, and thus it slows down the escape of heat into the outer space, and because of that we are not too much heated and we are not getting too much heat from the sun. Thanks to the blanket of atmosphere, that we are really saved from the great scorching heat of the sun, and we need really to do such activities in which we prevent the atmosphere and we protect it by causing less pollution. Now, on the basis of the given information previously, I would like you to try the following questions. You need to name 2 natural resources available on the earth. You can even write 3. Define biosphere and name its components. Name the 3 processes in which oxygen is used. The 4th question is, why is the atmosphere referred as a protective blanket, or how does it help? Write the 3 ways by which carbon dioxide is returned back into the atmosphere. And the last question is, what causes wind? Now we move on to the next topic, and that is the rain. When we talked about the atmosphere, when we talk about the water cycle, now water cycle will not go into detail just now. I may explain it later on, but you already know about the water cycle from standard 3rd, and you know how the clouds are formed, how does the evaporation takes place, as just we discussed in the previous discussion, that when the land gets heated, the air rises up, and when the air rises up, it is lighter in weight, and so it rises up. The air above on the altitude is very cool, and thus when it passes through this vapor, the vapor cools down, and thus the condensation takes place. When the water condenses, it forms clouds. Now when the cool air passes through the clouds, this water vapor, it condenses and forms drops of water, and when these drops of water, they become heavier. When further condensation takes place, these drops becomes heavier and fall down as rain. Now when they fall down as rain, again it gets collected into the water bodies. Now again, when the heat of the sun falls, again the evaporation takes place, and it is a continuous process, and so it is termed as the water cycle. Now this you have already learned, so I did not include it in the text, but you need to know. Now how is rain formed? Rain is formed by evaporation and condensation of water through the water cycle. Sometimes along with the rain there is acid rain. Now what is acid rain? Acid rain is caused by the release of gases, sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide, that is released during the emission of vehicles and combustion of fuels. Now these gases, they dissolve in rain water, and they form nitric acid and sulfuric acid, and so only we should not do more pollution, and we should keep the air clean. As far as possible, we should walk to small distances or go by bicycle and reduce the use of fuels. Industries, it is compulsory, so they need to use, but if they use less gases, so less chemical processes takes place, and so the fuels that are released into the air, the amount will decrease, and so there will be no pollution, and we may be able to sustain the life properly with less pollution. Now let's talk about the next constituent of the earth, and that is the water. We'll talk about the next abiotic component, water. Water is a renewable resource. Now what is renewable and non-renewable? You have learned about non-renewable and renewable resources. एक बार यूज़ करने के बाद अगर वो बाद में हम उसको यूज़ नहीं कर सकते तो उसको नॉन रिन्यूएबल कहते हैं. इट इज़ नॉट प्रोड्यूस्ड. व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट फॉसिल फ्यूल्स, व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट थिंग्स लाइक पेट्रोल, डीजल, एक बार जल गया तो वापस नहीं आएगा, तो उसको प्रोड्यूस करने में सालों लग जाते हैं. इट टेक्स हंड्रेड्स ऑफ ईयर्स टू गेट द फॉसिल फ्यूल्स, एंड सो वी मस्ट यूज़ इट जुडिशियसली. But that does not mean that we have to use the renewable resources in the way we like. अगर भगवान ने हमें हवा, पानी, सब कुछ दिया है तो उसका सही से उपयोग करना है, उसको वेस्ट नहीं करना है. वी डिड नॉट वेस्ट देम बिकॉज दे आर वेरी एसेंशियल. When we talk about water, it's really essential for all physiological activities of plants and animals. Now when we talk about water, it is present in two forms, the surface water and the groundwater. The surface water, as we see, it can be found in the water bodies like lakes, oceans, rivers, ponds. But when we talk about the groundwater, it is found underground. So the water which is found underground. Now where does it come from? It comes from the rain. When the water seeps into the earth, when it seeps into the ground, when it rains. So we must have enough amount of groundwater so that plants can sustain their life, because we may see on the ground there are many plants. Even if the gardener is not watering those plants grow. So where do they get water from? They get water from underground. So that is the groundwater. Now when we don't take care of this renewable resource, then it causes pollution, and this pollution is termed as water pollution. Now when does it occur? When any undesirable change in the physical, biological or chemical properties of water takes place. Now how does it takes place? Due to the addition of foreign material or foreign organic or inorganic substance. What is it? When we add chemicals, when the effluents from the industries are thrown into the water, or when people bath in the river, or when they wash clothes in that, then those chemicals from the detergents, they mix with the water and they pollute the water. So that adversely affects the aquatic life. We must take care that even there are organisms which live in water and they really need good water for their life, and when we pollute the water, their life is in danger, and this makes the water unfit for them, and thus it causes water pollution. You can see here in India, this is the condition. Now this is what happens during water pollution. You can see the water bodies. Now we will not talk about the causes, effects and solution. I have already discussed just now with you that these are the effects on the marine life when this water is consumed. You know about the how water management system, and how the water is recycled and how it is brought to the houses, and this only water we are using. So we must take care that we must keep the water clean and we must not pollute the water in order to live a healthy life. I'll just give a hint about the causes of water pollution. The main causes of water pollution are addition of harmful substances like fertilizers and pesticides to water, removal of desirable substances like oxygen from water. Now this is also human activity. When we remove all these things from the water, then we are indirectly harming ourselves only. And when there is a change in the water temperature, at that time also water pollution may be caused. Now let's move on to the next abiotic component of the earth, and that is the soil. Soil is the uppermost layer of the earth's crust, and it supports terrestrial plants, animals and microorganisms. So these abiotic component helps the biotic components to sustain life on the earth. Now how it is formed? It is formed from the weathering of rocks by physical, chemical and biological activities. Now weathering of rocks you have already learned in your previous classes, how the earth's layer was formed and how the life sustained on the earth, how due to the heat of the sun, due to the wind and because of other factors, how the rocks broke down into small pieces and then when the further heat and wind caused, due to that the pieces of rocks were converted into, formed into soil, and this is how the soil was formed. Now what does the soil consist of? What are the constituents of soil? So soil is mainly made up of mineral particles, organic materials, air, water and living organisms. Now which are the living organisms that live in the soil? Yes, there are many. When we talk about the tiny organisms like the earthworm, the millipedes, the centipedes, so there are many other insects too which live in soil. Along with the other constituents, humus is also present in the soil. Now what is humus? Humus is the decayed living organisms that is present in the soil. Now what is the role of humus? How is humus important for the plants? Humus makes the soil porous. Porous means there are small holes that are created in the soil. That is because of humus, and because of that it allows water and air to penetrate deep underground, and this makes the soil more fertile. Now why is it necessary to make the soil fertile? Only if the soil is fertile, then it will help in the proper growth of plants. You have learned about the different types of soil. You have learned about the clayey soil, sandy soil and the uh, other types of soils, and you have found that the soil which has humus is good for the growth of plants, and it is a mixture of sandy soil and clay soil, and thus the soil which has sandy soil, clay soil and humus is a good type of soil, and it helps for the proper growth of plants. Now, even due to certain human activities, the soil gets polluted. Now, we humans have decided that even we have got good gifts from God, we are going to spoil it. And if we spoil it, what happens? We are going to harm ourselves only. When we remove useful components from the soil and add other substances which adversely affect the fertility of soil, these ultimately kills the microorganisms living in the soil, and thus it causes the soil pollution. Now what are these chemicals? They include fertilizers and pesticides. Now why do we add fertilizers and pesticides? Because we want to keep the germs away from the plants. हमको उसे खाना है, इसीलिए हम क्या करते हैं, उसमें केमिकल्स डालते हैं ताकि माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिजम्स मर जाए, छोटे छोटे दूसरे वॉर्म्स मर जाए और वो प्लांट को डिस्ट्रॉय नहीं करें. बट इट्स ओके दैट वी यूज़ इट, बट वी मस्ट यूज़ इट judiciously, and as far as possible, instead of adding the fertilizers and pesticides, we must add manure which is safe, which is good for our health as well as it is good for plants, and it will not harm the plants adversely. Now how do we come that the soil is, I will come to know that the soil is polluted? It is seen with the presence of the mosses and the bryophytes. Now these mosses and bryophytes, you need not go into too much detail, but you will see that the land is tethered, and you may see that the quality of the soil is spoiled, and that adversely affects the plants. The outermost layer, the topmost layer of the soil, when it gets eroded means it gets removed. Now we know that the topmost layer is the most fertile layer of the soil, and when it gets eroded with water or some other activities. Now what are these other activities? When we do not grow plants and when we want habitats to exist on the earth, then we make big buildings and we just make the land barren, and because of that the topmost layer of the soil gets damaged, and that causes the soil erosion. In your previous lessons you have learned about the wearing away of the topsoil, and so will not go into too much detail, but you must know that the wearing away of the topsoil causes the soil erosion. Now let's see what are the causes of soil erosion. The main factors that are responsible for the soil erosion are overgrazing of land. Now what is overgrazing? When the animals graze on the land. What do the shepherds do? They just leave their cattle on the field and they do not take care, and they do not feed them at home. So they just take them to the field, and the cattle just overgraze. And when they overgraze, what happens? The topmost layer gets eroded. When the removal of the topsoil takes place due to wind and water, this causes the top layer to get washed away. Deforestation is one of the major reasons of soil erosion. Now you have learned about deforestation, afforestation, and you know how it affects, how the cutting down of trees causes air pollution, and even it affects the soil. Now even farmers, when they leave the land uncultivated for long time, when they have kept the crop, when they have harvested their crop, and when it's time for the next crop to be sown, what they do, in between they keep a gap and they just keep the land barren. So if that is done, then it affects the soil very adversely. So there are people who just sow weeds. When weeds are sown into the soil, then at least the soil, the topmost layer will get protected, and it will not get washed away with the water or wind, and thus it is protected. So the land should be not left barren, and it should not be kept uncultivated. What are the effects of soil erosion? Now, due to loss of fertility, the topmost fertile soil, it gets eroded and it results in desertification. Now what is desertification? A area which is void of plants, जहाँ पे plants नहीं होते हैं, and the land becomes barren. Landslides in hilly areas. Now we have heard a lot about landslides in news, and we know how the land moves due to the activities of human and due to the soil erosion that is caused on the earth. Clogging of water drains and water reservoirs by the washed off soil. जब soil wash off हो जाती है और जो drains होते हैं वो clog हो जाते हैं. Clog हो जाना मतलब it will stop the passage of water. तो वो passage बंद हो जाता है, उसकी वजह से वो soil को affect करता है. It causes damage. Now how can we prevent soil erosion? Soil can be prevented from getting eroded by implementing the following methods. What we can do is we can have intensive cropping. Intensive cropping means we should not keep the land barren for a long time, and as soon as one crop is harvested, the next should be sown. We know that there should be a gap between two crops, but at least weeds can be sown so that it cannot damage the land. Terrace farming. Terrace farming is a good alternative in order to prevent soil. Terrace farming you have already learned in your lower classes, how the crops are grown on the slopes and how the terrace farming is done. Afforestation. Afforestation is again growing of more plants and reducing the cutting down of trees. The last alternative is making strong embankments along the river banks. Now this is done in order to prevent the soil getting eroded due to floods. When the water from the dam or from the river banks, when it is flown onto the land, then the topmost layer gets eroded. So building bunds, you have heard about bunds. So embankment is one type of bunds that are made on the river banks in order to protect the topmost layer of the soil. Long back, you have learned in SS about the Chipko movement. What was the Chipko movement? It was a movement started in order to conserve the forests. Long back, when the authorities they were cutting down the trees, people of that region they protested. Now how did they protest? They just embraced the trees and they did not allow the people to cut the trees. So this movement was led by Sri Sundar Lal Bahuguna in Garhwal Himalayas. वहाँ हिमालयस पे जब बहुत सारे ट्रीज़ कटने लगे तो वहाँ के लोगों को बहुत चिंता होने लगी कि अगर ये ट्रीज़ कट गए तो हमारी जो सृष्टि है उसको बहुत नुकसान होगा एंड इट विल बी अ ग्रेट लॉस टू अस. सो दे ऑल टुगेदर they just embraced the tree and they did not allow the people to cut the tree, and that movement was termed as the Chipko movement. So at least if we don't do the Chipko movement, at least we shall take an initiative in order to stop people cutting the trees. And if for our necessity we are cutting trees, then we must take care that we grow more trees. At least we can take a resolution that on our birthdays, not only on our birthday but on the birthdays of our family members, we'll grow trees. तो हर बर्थडे, हर किसी फैमिली मेम्बर का बर्थडे जब आता है तो अगर हम एक प्लांट ग्रो करते हैं, देन इफ़ वी हैव 3 or 4 फैमिली मेम्बर्स इन आवर हाउस, देन एटलीस्ट इन अ ईयर we'll plant 4 plants. So think about, if everyone thinks like this, then we'll have a number of trees on the earth, and thus we can help our environment. And it is a give and take process. So when the environment is helping us, when the abiotic components are helping us, then it's our duty also to preserve them. It's our responsibility to take care of these resources, otherwise they may be exhausted and then will be in loss. Okay, so with this we complete the biotic and abiotic components of the earth. Now further we'll deal with the basic cycles which exist on the earth and which helps in the balance of the environment. We'll be dealing about it in the next video. Till then, I would like you to answer the review questions that are given in the presentation, and along with that I would like you to go through the lesson once so that you will get an idea about the lesson very nicely. I have tried to cover most of the topics, but still if anything is left out, I would be covering it in the next video. The cycles will be dealing in the next video, and I'll also give you the other videos related to the other topics of this lesson. Hope you have understood it well. If you have any doubt regarding the lesson, please feel free to ask me anytime. Stay home, stay safe, and have a nice day. Thank you.